I've been given until January to decide if I want to live with Mom or with Dad or move in with Mom's sister Tammy in Utah. Mom thought it would be a good idea to spend Christmas with Dad to help my decision-making process. The woman whose worst threats used to include sending me off to stay with him was now saying things like, "It will be good for you to spend more time with your father." As if I really need a weekend with Dad and Crystal to understand how impossible it would be for me to survive in their 2-bedroom trailer home. What I need to decide is how well Jamie will survive without me. If not for her, I would run away. But instead, I'm sitting in between her and our father in the front seat of his pickup, with the gear shift digging into my thigh and dreaming about my own little cottage in the woods. I'd have a fireplace and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, big comfy chairs, and a skylight, a dog like Rambo for protection. "You know we need to go through Vallejo, right?" I say, and Dad swerves to make the turnoff. Someone honks. "I was testing you," he says. "You think you know everything." "I was the one who wanted to bring a map," I say. "We'll find it," he says, and puts his arm around my shoulder. The fake ocean scent of his Old Spice deodorant is sharp in my nose. "Deborah gives good directions," he says. "She's related to me." I roll my eyes. "You didn't write them down." "Don't need to," he says, and nudges my shoulder with his hand. He pokes my temple. "I have an excellent sense of direction." "I have an excellent sense of direction," I say. "Exactly," he says. "I also have a perfect memory." "Me too," Jamie says. "That's my girl," says Dad. Jamie smiles. "I remember being born." "You do not," I say. Jamie turns to me and crosses her arms. "Yes, I do." I say, "I don't even remember." Mom tells me I took one look at baby Jamie, pink and wrinkly, squirming and wailing in her arms, and I ran out of the room screaming. Mom had to get a nurse to chase me down because Dad didn't show up at the hospital until Jamie was 7 hours old, but of course she doesn't know that. "So," Jamie says, "I remember things you don't." I think, you have that backwards. "Whatever," I say, crossing my arms over my chest like a shield near Dad's dangling hand. "We should have brought a map." He says, "Don't forget, Liz," and lifts his freckled arm off me. "We're smarter than the average bear," he says in his best yogi voice. A few years ago, it would have been enough to make us laugh. I say, "That won't help us read road signs in the dark." "Lighten up," he says, and even though he's not holding a beer, in my head I hear the sound of the can opening, the swift hiss of pressurized air escaping, because it's what usually happens after he tells me that. Jamie says, "Don't you know how to get there?" Dad and I say in unison, "Of course." I stare out the front window, the low winter sun setting behind the hills ahead, the light fractured orange, blue, purple, and pink atop the silver glassiness of the water's surface on either side of this bridge. Jamie and I made this drive with Mom every Thanksgiving I can remember until Terrence showed up. On our way to Aunt Deborah's, Dad's sister and Mom's best friend, through Vallejo and over the Mare Island Causeway, past the giant boats with rows of twinkling lights, circular portholes, and metal fixtures. We passed the marshes full of tall cranes and egrets standing still as statues in the grass-encircled pools. Pitted and water-beaten wooden poles left over from forsaken piers pierce the water's surface. Little birds perch on top, some tucked in for the night, their feet invisible, their beaks buried underneath their feathered necks. Dad clears his throat the way singers do before a performance, and I wait for his version of an apology. "Hey, ya boo-boo," he says, and pats my thigh. "How about some Xmas tunes?" He pushes a button above my knee, and the happy jingle of bells fills the cab. We usually spend this holiday at home with Mom, enjoying our personal Christmas Eve traditions of fork-optional appetizer dinners, each opening one small gift, reading from the Advent calendar we've mostly memorized, and falling asleep under twinkling strands of colored lights, listening to Mom singing "O Holy Night" in her soothing soprano. But not this year. Deborah won't even have a tree since it was born out of a pagan ritual. The radio starts a non-stop round of Christmas carols, and Frosty the Snowman is first. Dad turns up the volume. "Frosty the Crusty," he sings, "had a big yanker up his nose." Jamie giggles. "Dad," she says. I roll my eyes, even though a few years ago I'd been proud to help him come up with new lyrics, especially if they made Jamie laugh. "You know the words," he says, and sings louder. "It was oversized and it made girls cry, so we flushed it with a hose." He elbows me and smiles. "Everybody!" I look at Jamie and she smiles. When the chorus comes on, the three of us belt out, Frosty the Krusty was a fairy tale they say, but his big ol' sneeze will live in memories. He sure made that booger pay. And by the end of the song, I'm smiling too. I think of burping contests and basketball games, pitching a tent in the living room, lighting real campfires in metal buckets on the carpet when Mom was at work. I think of how before I'd understood that fathers were supposed to do more than play and make voices and be funny, my dad had been great. We sing Rudolph the Fat-Assed Reindeer and Silent Fart. Our breaths fog up the window, and now it's black enough outside that I expect to still be able to see the stark white cranes who live here in these marshes, dark enough that it seems like they should glow. We finally make it through Petaluma into Rohnert Park, and after 40 minutes of driving around random neighborhoods looking for Aunt Deborah's street, I say, why don't we call her from a payphone? Jamie is asleep, her face pressed into the glass, her thumb in her mouth. Dad pulls into a gas station and tosses me a quarter. I'll be right back, he says. I glare at him. It's none of your business, he says. I kiss Jamie's soft forehead. Come on, Dad, it's Christmas, I say, scooting under the steering wheel and jumping out onto the asphalt. The wind is warmer here, smells faintly briny like the beach. I unzip my jacket. He says, and I'm celebrating. Not here, I say. His features are shadowed in the yellow light from the store, his freckles black spots on his face and arms, but I can see he's pouting. He says, I'll let you have one. Like I want a beer, I say. He wags his finger at me. You're more like me than you think, Liz. I say, I'll tell Crystal. This is a standoff we've had many times before. Jamie sleeps or watches TV, and Dad and I decide what compromises we are willing to make. Timelines and ounces, offers and counteroffers. 5 blocks, 1 beer. 5 miles, half a beer. Even the cracked asphalt and gasoline perfuming the air are familiar. If Jamie was awake, we would just walk. Fine, he says, and kicks at a Twinkies wrapper floating across the parking lot. Not here, he says in a high-pitched mocking voice. Promise, I say. I swear on Santa Claus, he says. He taps his nose with his short, pale index finger and winks. Go get directions and stop worrying about your dad. I think, it's not you I worry about. Fine, I say, my fake Converse sneakers swiveling on the pavement toward the phone booth. I don't need to watch him walk to the coolers at the back of the mini-mart, pick the cheapest beer and take it to the counter. He'll make some joke to the cashier with the under-eye circles and bad skin, who will laugh obligingly at the red-haired man who looks older than his almost 40, whose freckled fingers tremble just a little as he pulls small bills out of his wallet, one by one by one. So that's the end of that section. And I wanted to read, it's okay with you guys, just one other little bit. This is the very first page, so I'm hoping this will be a teaser and everybody will want to go buy the book. Chapter 1. My mom and her husband are doing it in her bedroom. I listen to her bed springs squeak and their hushed, heavy breathing. I need to pee, but if I get up, they'll hear me, and that sudden conscious silence would be worse than the sound of chimp squeals and hyperventilation, muffled by our hollow bedroom doors and the 3 feet of hallway in between. At least she's not screaming, oh God, like I've seen in movies. I chew the slippery skin on the inside of my mouth and wonder if it's still a sin to take the Lord's name in vain during sex, or if then it is like a prayer. It is Terrence's first night out. For 2 years, my mom has saved her nice voice for his collect calls, driven the hour and a half to Vacaville every Thursday afternoon and Sunday morning to see him, waited expectantly for his 20-page letters full of shaded hearts pierced with arrows, poems wrought with adolescent angst, and fantasies I can never, ever repeat out loud. His dark penciled writing is frilly with curled loops and a childlike slant. I only read the letters because Jamie made me. Why would he want her to do that thing with the marshmallows, she said, after she found the envelopes, dozens of them, in a pile under our mom's nightstand. I told her I'd rather not think about it. Water sloshing and soft moaning sounds radiate from Mom's bathroom now, and I start to wonder how they can both fit in the tub, but gross. When Terrence arrived at the apartment today, he said, I know you don't like it when I hug you, but I'm going to anyway. He scooped me up in his arms and spun me around like I was a toddler, while I stayed straight as a corpse. Mom snapped a photo and giggled. He set me down, but held me close to his chest. The pressure of his splayed hands across my lower back kept my hips against him. He breathed in my ear, I missed you. We're so excited you're home, Mom said, taking another picture. Aren't we, Liz? Not as excited as me, Terrence said. His fingers grazed the sides of my breasts as he released me, and if he hadn't done it before, I might have thought it was an accident. He wagged his thick black eyebrows at Mom, and they haven't left her room since. If Jamie still lived here, I'd be lying along the outer edge of her bed, singing songs or cracking jokes. But alone, I stuff Kleenex in my ears and fold my body until my limbs are wrapped around me like a shell. Thank you.